The Industrial Age, The Spirit of Materialism, 1850 to 1910. Materialism is the belief that science, technology, and industry can know all truth, solve all problems, and create human happiness. The Industrial Revolution changed the way people work, obtain products, and live their everyday lives. Modernity is the process by which the new, up-to-date, and the contemporary replace the outmoded and traditional. Artists of the late 19th century turned against modernity. Some questions to ponder in this unit are, can science, technology, and industry know all truth, solve all problems, and create human happiness? Think of examples and non-examples. For example, how has life changed after the invention of the smartphone? What are the effects when the new, up-to-date, and the contemporary replace the outmoded and traditional? Is this a good thing? Do you always need to upgrade to the newest model? During the Industrial Age, there was a spirit of material and scientific progress. Victorians were optimistic about science, but doubtful about the injustices brought about by their imperialism. Architectural monuments of progress include several architectural styles: neoclassical, Gothic, and Renaissance revivals. Iron was used in building bridges and industrial structures. The Crystal Palace of iron and glass, built for the Great Exhibition in London 1851 and designed by Joseph Paxton, was an innovative style at the time. It was destroyed by fire in 1936. The Eiffel Tower in Paris, built with iron lattices in 1889 by Gustave Eiffel, was the tallest building in the world for 40 years. Louis Henry Sullivan and Dankmar Adler's 13-story Guarantee Building in Buffalo, New York, 1894 to 1895, was the tallest in Buffalo at the time. Its construction was made possible due to the invention of the passenger elevator in 1852. It had a steel cage frame covered in a terracotta exterior shell. Sullivan and Adler's design was the archetype for the modern skyscraper. The modern city evolved as cities such as Washington, D.C. and St. Petersburg in Russia were designed and built from scratch. They were influenced by Versailles' rational plan and neoclassical style. In Paris, Haussmann, appointed by Napoleon III, converted Paris into an imperial capital with broad boulevards and plazas, trees, and spaciousness. There was a dark side to this industrial progress. Colonialism led to oppression in Asia and Africa. This map shows the division of the continent of Africa in 1900. The 20th century and its two world wars would drastically change the power structure worldwide as former European colonies fought for independence. Charles Darwin's work, Origin of the Species, proposed that nature obeyed laws of progress and the survival of the fittest resulted from natural selection. This theory was used to justify the colonial exploitation of Africa and Asia in the racist belief of social Darwinism. Marx and Engels wrote about the revolution of the proletariat, the workers, in the Communist Manifesto. This work would influence the government and economics of the world in the 20th century, as nations split over the response to the economic system of communism. The late 19th century novel focused on people's inner lives, anticipating the theories of Freud. The novels of American and British author Henry James, Russian author Dostoevsky, and the German Nietzsche focused on the psychological realism of the characters. New Yorker Edith Wharton wrote realistically about the lives of the upper class in New York in novels such as Ethan Frome. She was the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for Literature in 1921. Realism is the sober detachment and practicality and the truthful and objective representation of the social world without embellishments. This idea was expressed in the art of the Industrial Age. The aim was to depict society as it really was. Courbet enraged Parisians with his portrayal of provincial life. His burial at Ornans, realistically illustrating an ordinary funeral, caused a scandal. Rosa Bonheur observed and sketched horses for over a year, resulting in these photograph-like images of horses in action. The invention of photography in the early 19th century led to the evolution of photography as an art form. Honoré Daumier's 1862 lithograph, Nader Raising Photography to the Heights of Art, shows Gaspard Felix Tourneschan, aka Nader, taking the first aerial photographs. In this Civil War photograph by Matthew Brady, images of fallen soldiers realistically depict the horrors of war. Winslow Homer's The Gulf Stream, 1899, is painted in a more impressionistic style, but its subject shows the realism of a storm-tossed boat in shark-infested water spotted with blood. Thomas Aiken's The Agnew Clinic, 1889, realistically portrays medical students observing a surgery. Notice this was before the time of masks and gloves. Jean-Francois Millet's 1857 Gleaners shows women picking up the leftovers in a field after the harvest. Realist themes appeared in novels and drama as well. Novels, the new dominant literary form of the 19th century, described the reality of industrial society. Charles Dickens wrote about the cruelty to children in Oliver Twist. Gustave Flaubert's Madame Bovary told the story of a naive woman overwhelmed by the modern world. Other works dealt with illusion and disillusionment of the industrial age. Playwrights Chekhov and Ibsen wrote realistic plays about ordinary contemporary life. In Chekhov's The Three Sisters, for example, the entire play centers on a lengthy conversation the sisters have about whether or not to return to Moscow. It's like a 19th century version of a Seinfeld episode. In contrast to realism, some artists embraced symbolism, or art for art's sake. They rejected the values of industrial society and believed art existed parallel to the world in a separate universe. French sculptor Auguste Rodin broke with the traditional ideas of commemorative public sculpture, such as Bartholdi's Statue of Liberty. His The Gates of Hell was inspired by Dante's Inferno and included tortured figures, including the iconic The Thinker. This pose would be replicated countless times in other sculptures. Art Nouveau is a specific genre of symbolist art. It's a style of decorative art and architecture that used floral motifs and stressed unity of materials and form, embracing the concept art in nature, nature in art. Tiffany's colored glass is a great example of Art Nouveau. His works can be found in the Morse Museum on Park Avenue in Winter Park. Klimt's The Kiss has elements of symbolist and Art Nouveau styles with the decorative floral patterns surrounding the embracing couple. Impressionism and beyond. Artists wanted to paint modern life and give impressions of the moment rather than realistic depictions of images. They defined new techniques of light, color, and visual form and violated painterly tradition. Manet's Luncheon on the Grass was the precursor and inspiration for the Impressionist style. Like the Impressionists who would follow him, Manet would violate painterly tradition by placing a nude woman among fully dressed men who seem to ignore her. She gazes confidently, almost defiantly, out at the viewer. The trees in the background are painted with broad brushstrokes and imprecise detail. The term Impressionist was first used to describe a painting by Claude Monet, Impression Sunrise. The Impressionist paintings were rejected by the official salon and criticized for giving just an impression of the subject rather than a realistic likeness. In 1874, Impressionist painters had their own exhibition outside of the salon. Their work intentionally gave the impression of their subjects through the use of light, color, spontaneous technique, detachment, and innovative design. Notable Impressionists were Renoir, Morisot, Degas, Pissarro, and Cassatt. Here is the painting that gave the name to the Impressionist, Impression Sunrise by Claude Monet. Here is Bertha Morisot's 1872, The Cradle. Notice the bold brush strokes in the canopy over the sleeping child. Morisot uses blues, reds, and yellows to illustrate the shading of the white fabric. Auguste Renoir was more poetic and emotional than Monet. He painted scenes showing the informal mood of city life. In this 1876 work, La Moulin de la Galette, Renoir creates an accidental pattern of yellow straw hats and the prints on the women's dresses. Edgar Degas uses arbitrary framing of his subjects and an off-center composition in The Dance Class. Mary Cassatt's 1893 Impressionist work, The Child's Bath. Musicians created works influenced by both Impressionism and Realism. Debussy's works explored new harmonies, evoking dream-like moods and impressions. Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun discarded conventional harmony. In the opera world, realism was embraced through Verismo in works by Puccini and Bizet. On your own, listen to Debussy's Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun and Puccini's La Bohème. Post-Impressionists extended Impressionist techniques in different directions. Georges Seurat was probably closest to Monet's pure Impressionism with his scenes of urban life, with unmixed colors directly applied to the canvas. In Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grangette, Seurat uses pointillism, the application of thousands of tiny dots that create an image when you step back, kind of like the pixels used in digital photography today. Paul Cézanne explored the essence of reality by reducing objects to their basic geometric pattern. His work is a precursor to modern abstract painting and the Cubist art of Picasso. This is Cézanne's Still Life with Apples and Oranges and The Basket of Apples. Cézanne's Mont Sainte-Victoire is a good example of early Cubism. Notice the landscape and mountain in the background are composed of many individual cubes. Paul Gauguin wanted to express human feeling and enter the mysterious center of thought. He studied the primitive art of Brittany in northwest France and sought unique and picturesque images of unspoiled nature. He used unnatural colors, heavy lines, and flattened shapes. His work is a precursor to the surrealism of later 20th century artists such as Dali. Day of the God shows the Tahitian goddess Hina surrounded by dancers and bathers. Gauguin was friends with Vincent van Gogh and it was directly after the two friends had an argument that Van Gogh sliced off his own left ear. Vincent van Gogh was influenced by Impressionists using colors to convey strong emotions. In The Starry Night, swirling lines convey violent energy with vivid colors applied thickly with a knife. His work is a precursor to abstract expressionism. Now let's review the major art styles of the Industrial Age. On a scrap sheet, number from 1 to 4 and see if you can identify the style of these 4 works. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now the answers. 1, realism. 2, post-impressionism. 3, Art Nouveau. 4, impressionism.